What does it mean to be political? I mentioned at the end of our first video something very interesting about the statements the church makes about what it means to be a citizen. The Catechism states that as far as possible, citizens should take part in public life. We have an obligation to take part in public life. As citizens of both the heavenly and earthly city, we have responsibilities to both. And we can't just bury our heads in the sand. But church teaching also resists the idea that we could reduce what it means to have a public life simply to voting. What's interesting about what the church imagines public life to be and the way that we typically imagine public life is that they're very different. In America, every few years, we have a big push for voting registration and get out the vote campaigns. While voting is important, for many people, that's the extent of their public life. They're almost civilly passive until the next election. That sort of thinking reduces our role as citizens to just getting the right people in office, getting the right people in positions of power. But our role as leaven in the world extends much further than just pulling a lever every few years in the ballot box. Part of the problem is we often think about politics as a thing we do, or a way of seeing the world. And that tends to make sense, right? Oh, I disagree with her politics. But that's not exactly what the church understands politics to be. The church suggests that politics is a virtue. A virtue is an action that we cultivate so that it becomes a habit, part of who we are, our being. And the church's idea of public life needs us to become political people, people who can participate in politics well. To understand why, we should talk a little bit more about what politics means. When we think of politics, we typically think of parties and elections and Congress and the president. And of course, those are aspects of politics. The word politics, though, derives from the word polis in Greek, which means city. And it also refers to what we can call the body of citizens. See, the two are connected, a city and the people who make it up. And so, broadly speaking, politics means how we organize the city, how we organize these bodies that have come together in a public way. And it might help to imagine ancient cities where people lived much closer together, when life in the city entailed everything about society. To do politics in that context meant to think seriously about what we wanted the society to look like. And if politics means ordering the city into a certain end, to a goal, to what we want it to look like, then what sort of goals should we pursue? The ancient idea of government is that it ought to direct society to those goals, to human ends, to the ultimate purpose of our existence. It ought to help people become who they're meant to be. St. Thomas Aquinas took this idea and applied a Christian lens. And in his context, he thought that kings had the responsibility of making laws and structuring society in a way that would help citizens cultivate virtue. In the United States, Catholics like Dorothy Day and Peter Maurin said in a wonderful line that the goal of society is to create a world in which it is easier to be good. Politics can be understood in a way that is much larger and broader than simply passing laws and having the right politicians and judges. A Catholic notion of public life is supposed to be one in which citizens discuss and debate and reason and pray about what sort of society we should live in, and how that society will help us become the people we're meant to be. An idea of politics in that way implies that having conversations with friends and neighbors about deep values is actually more political, in a good way, than voting. Because in this view, politics is a communal discernment. It requires active participation and openness to others. I know how idealistic that sounds, and how different it seems from the typical way that we see politics done in society. But that is why we need to witness this other way of being political. Being open to the ideas of others, allowing them to have different opinions, and talking together about values and shared goals is a radically different witness that the world longs for. The Catechism of the Catholic Church states that as far as possible, citizens should take part in public life. Notice that it first states we should take part in public life, not simply voting. Voting is one aspect of being a public person, but it can't be the only way in which we actively form a society in which it's easier to be good. Attending city council meetings, taking part in neighborhood organizations, volunteering, offering to babysit the family next door, and engaging in discussions about what sort of society we want to be in are all essential aspects of our call to be leaven in the world. Not only that, but by participating in this way, by sharing this common life, and discussing our common goals, we develop the bonds of communion that reflect the communion we hope to share in the city of God. We have an obligation to participate in public life. Often, though, our trouble is navigating that discussion about what sort of common life we wish to build. In the next video, we'll dive into the foundational aspects of Catholic social teaching and its implications for society. Until then, may God bless you.